Today's webinar is entitled Healing Reads, Bibliotherapy for the 21st Century. Your presenters are 2011 Eureka Fellows Rebecca Elder, Amy Geddes, and Matthew Rose. I'm now happy to introduce Rebecca, Matthew, and Amy.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Matthew Rose. I work with the County of Los Angeles Public Library.
Hi, all. This is Amy Geddes. I work with San Diego County Library.
And this is Rebecca Elder, and I work at the Monrovia Public Library.
And if someone can drop the ball to me, we are going to be talking about bibliotherapy today. And bibliotherapy is medicine for the soul. Before we get too far into things, we want to tell you what we're going to talk about. We're going to define bibliotherapy, talk about some of the history and stages of bibliotherapy, and then how you can do bibliotherapy in your library. I'm going to talk about why bibliotherapy is important for you and your library, and Amy's going to talk about how you can use bibliotherapy in your library, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end of our presentation. And Rebecca is going to start us off.
All right, good morning, everyone. I need some assistance with the, I'm sorry, hold on one second.
Hi, Rebecca. Remember the thumbnails. Just bring up your thumbnails in the lower right, or lower left, sorry, where it says view and thumbnails.
Yes, thank you. There we go. I apologize. All right, so what is bibliotherapy? At its very basic level, bibliotherapy means healing or helping people through books. And there are two different types of bibliotherapy, and today our focus will be on developmental bibliotherapy. Developmental bibliotherapy may be used by librarians, teachers, or lay helpers to facilitate normal development and self-actualization with an essentially healthy population. Clinical bibliotherapy is implemented by trained helping professionals dealing with significant emotional or behavioral problems. I'd like for us to take a look at the history of bibliotherapy in case some of you are not familiar with it. The therapeutic use of reading has survived the test of time. The concept of healing through books can be traced back to ancient Greece, where the door at the library at Thebes has the inscription, "The healing place of the soul." In the early 1800s, reading became one of the commonly used therapeutic interventions in hospitals, second only to exercise. Reading distracted patients, connected them to the outside world, engaged them with positive ideas, and gave them hope and consolation. Take a look at the book plate because it says the insane department up there in the corner. During World War I and II, the American Library Association sponsored highly successful library programs. Reading was used by librarians to help soldiers recover from war trauma, and this service was extended into peacetime to aid disabled veterans. During the 1970s, there was a great deal of interest in bibliotherapy as the behavior modification and self-help era began. It was used by psychologists, librarians, nurses, and social workers. Today, with the popularity of book clubs, reading clubs, and book discussions, and communities engaging in health-conscious activities, a renewed interest in bibliotherapy has emerged. So we're going to take a look at the stages of bibliotherapy, and there are 4 stages. During the first 2 stages, the group or individual's needs are identified and appropriate books are selected to match the need. This is where knowing your collection and materials are really important, and skill and insight are helpful. In the presentation and follow-up stages, participants identify with the materials, express their insights through discussion and/or creative art, and become aware of possible solutions. The purpose of bibliotherapy is to assist people in identifying and overcoming challenges related to real-life problems with the guidance of library staff through the use of directed readings, discussion, and follow-up activities. I want to talk a little bit about how bibliotherapy works. Ideally, if you're interested in conducting bibliotherapy in your library, you should have a genuine interest in working with others and an ability to empathize. When working with individuals, the goal is to match the right book to the right reader. Many of you might see bibliotherapy as reader's advisory, since both of them include librarians recommending books for patrons to read. There's a bit of a difference, and that is that reader's advisory suggests what the patron says they want, and bibliotherapy suggests what the librarian thinks the patron may need. Group work requires planning and identifying your target group. The process includes selecting the time, location, and appropriate materials for the group. I have found that introductory activities about the material, such as using video book trailers, author information, and using discussion prompts that include open-ended questions, are all good choices for motivating group participation. Providing different reading, viewing, or listening opportunities, both independently and in the group setting, helps engage participants. Using creative activities such as art, writing, and even food helps provide further connection to the materials. Using those open-ended discussion prompts and group input to identify possible solutions to problems helps guide participants towards closure. Last but not least, using formal or informal means for evaluation of the program and of participants' experiences is essential for assessment purposes. Now let's take a look at the audience and some of the materials that you can use in bibliotherapy. Adults, teens, and youth are ideal candidates for bibliotherapy, either individually or in group settings. Book clubs, book chats, author studies, topic discussion groups, and the list goes on and on. Partnerships are very important. Establishing partnerships with other groups and agencies can create more funding opportunities and enable you to reach a wider audience and create valuable networking opportunities. Our Friends group funded the creative art activities, a local restaurant provided food, and city council members came to formally recognize our group members at my bibliotherapy project. Some of the materials that you would use are both fiction and nonfiction. They both can be used, and identifying your target group will assist with the material selection. The teen group that I worked with had been incarcerated, so the theme of second chances and the use of young adult fiction was appropriate for that group. In contrast, if you had a local group of business owners that were seeking to increase business in a sluggish economy, that group would obviously benefit from a nonfiction book. Knowing your collection and having a wide range of books to offer, and consider also using music, film, and internet materials as well. The benefits of bibliotherapy are varied and many, and they're not just for participants. My personal experience with bibliotherapy offered me the opportunity to develop new skills and to be a part of an exciting and moving experience. Groups can be set up in almost any location. I conducted one session in a local restaurant in my community. There are, of course, limitations, as there are with everything. First, bibliotherapy is not a cure-all, and librarians are not trained mental health professionals. Sometimes in group settings, leaders impose their own agendas on the group, or they might become uncomfortable with a participant's disclosure, which can often be unsettling. Collection knowledge and a wide range of materials are essential to bibliotherapy. Librarians can attempt to match a book to a reader, but there's no guarantee that the reader will identify with the book's characters, since reading is subjective. Lastly, additional challenges may arise when serving English as a second language or visually impaired participants. And now I'm going to turn this over to Matthew.
Good afternoon again, everyone. Rebecca has been talking about how and what bibliotherapy is and how to incorporate those strategies into your library programs. I'm going to talk to you about why you should use bibliotherapy. First of all, your library mission should justify utilization of bibliotherapy. Using bibliotherapy is a fantastic tool to assist with library outreach, and lastly, library services are changing rapidly, and practicing bibliotherapy can aid in our professional transformation. I'm going to ask everyone to locate the hand icon on your user panel and answer the question. Raise your hand if you know off the top of your head your mission statement without looking it up, or if you can at least muddle through a close approximation of why you do what you do in your library. So go ahead and take time to raise your hand if you know it. And we've got quite a few people raising their hand, but not everyone, so please do look up your mission statement and know it. It's why you do what you do, and if you don't know it, why are you working? The next question is, not only do you know your mission statement, but let's raise our hands if your staff and your volunteers know it. This is the frontline people in your library, and they should know why they're doing what they're doing. I'm going to give you a minute to raise your hand, or think about raising your hand, or feel ashamed for not raising your hand. A lot fewer people raised their hand for the second question about the staff and volunteers. Really do encourage you to get your library mission statement dusted off and share it with your staff and share it with your customers. The reason we're talking about library mission statements is that a good library mission statement infuses your library with purpose. It clearly and succinctly shapes your organizational offerings, services, and products. Because libraries try to be all things to all people at all times, some of our mission statements can be a bit vague. Most mission statements contain three major components: the audience, the product, and the end result. And bibliotherapy always fits very well into most mission statements of libraries. For example, if we're looking at the mission statement of the New York Public Library, we have the audience, which is communities. We have the product, which is learning and knowledge, and we have the end result, which is lifelong and advance and strengthen and inspire. Looking at the Los Angeles Public Library, they have a product of information, ideas, books, and technology. They have an audience of diverse communities, and they have every individual, and they have an end result of empowerment, enrichment, and education. Your library mission and goals of bibliotherapy are easily in alignment. If you desire to serve your community, enrich people, enhance community life, foster diverse opportunities, empower every individual, inspire lifelong learning, and strengthen your communities, then bibliotherapy is a damn good way to do that. In library outreach fits really well with your library mission also. And I like library missions. They're really fun to explore and read different options of how we serve our customers. And outreach is a part of those library missions. And bibliotherapy is a perfect way to take library services out into your community. Think of creative ways to perform bibliotherapy services to underserved or ignored portions of your service area. One example is in the Acton, Agua Dulce area, which is the service area I have most recently served. I have an inpatient drug and alcohol treatment center, or a rehab center, in my service area. The people in the rehab center stay in there for 90 days while pursuing treatment, and they're not allowed to leave the rehab center. This is an audience that is 120 men stuck in 5 different bunks, or 5 different bunk houses on bunk beds with nothing to do but talk and participate in group and AA discussions. That audience could use some library services for education and for entertainment. I started a book club, and it's been a lot of fun and professionally rewarding for me. Members of the book club have said that without the book club, they probably would not have been able to complete treatment, and that the book club provides excellent transitional preparation for reentry into life after rehab, that the reading habits developed in the book club will continue on in their post-rehab life, and will keep them from backsliding into dangerous habits. More importantly, while in treatment, the book club provided an excellent way to build a community. Even though they're there temporarily, having 120 men live in close quarters created a stressful living condition, and the stress is one of the triggers for drug and alcohol use. Having the book club was a great way to talk to the men and have them talk to each other, to get them to get to know each other so they can better survive the temporary living situations they found themselves in. These benefits are specific to the rehab center, but other benefits can be realized in child care centers, hospitals, senior centers, or after-school centers. And libraries are changing. When we look at our future, we all know these changes are coming. One way that libraries can change is to embrace our strength in the changing world and be cognizant of how we as a profession engage people in real and human ways. This is a huge contrast to how other organizations engage their customers. For example, Amazon doesn't have a human component to their service interactions. You can email them questions and you get a nice form letter in return, and they try and make it sound like a human wrote the form letter, but it's not very convincing. Google doesn't have a human interaction either. Retail ebooks keep the retail interaction devoid of any human interaction. That is a great strength for those that like easy access to those services, but if you want a human component, you can't get it from those organizations. And libraries have long been community gathering spaces, and we need to expand this role in our community. A library can provide communities a commons to meet in small groups, meet with their neighbors, and interact with others in book clubs, knitting groups, writing workshops, and conversation clubs. Libraries can serve as co-working spaces, maker spaces, and community centers, and bibliotherapy services can be one of the ways we continue to offer friendly, inviting, and healthy experiences in real spaces for real people, and kind of counteract the move towards a computer interaction and have a human interaction. Now Amy is going to give us more examples of how bibliotherapy has been used in libraries.
Okay, thanks, Matthew. We've talked about what bibliotherapy is and how it fits in with library core services. Now it's time to discuss some of its practical applications in library programming. What are some of the ways that you can implement this technique at your branch? Next, we'll give you 4 ways that bibliotherapy has been used historically in libraries. Story times are the most popular form of bibliotherapy in libraries. Now this is Ryan, and as you can see, he's very excited to participate in story time. On average, our branch has 5 to 7 story times a week. We also, throughout the San Diego County Library System, do what is called drop everything and read. This is where when a staff member sees a group of children, they pick up a book and have an impromptu story. It's a good way to develop the children's core skills and engage them in the reading process for a lifetime. Read to Dogs is another countywide program that many of our libraries have. Here you see Meredith and Maddox. Maddox is one of around 10 dogs that come to the branch every month. Read dogs are registered therapy animals who volunteer with their owners or handlers as a team, going to libraries and many other settings as reading companions for children. The idea behind this program is to give the child a chance to read to a non-judgmental ear, the puppies, so that they can become more comfortable with reading. It's an excellent way to combine fun and therapy. I usually visit this program when it's going on, even though another one of my staff members runs it, because I find the process incredibly soothing. Never mind our meditation classes, because we have those too, by the way. I prefer to pet the puppies and listen to a good story. Here are a few of the resources that you might want to check into if you're thinking about starting a Read to Dogs program. There's Therapy Dogs International, San Diego County Humane Society, or your local Humane Society, Paws for Tails, Love on a Leash, and Library Dogs. The group that you just saw is associated with Therapy Dogs International. Another important way to implement bibliotherapy in your library is to read to a child that is dealing with loss. This is just one example of how reading can help a person of any age deal with subject matter that is difficult. As Rebecca mentioned earlier, this type of reading can direct participants toward closure through identification of possible solutions, reduce stress and isolation, and stimulate discussion and exchange of ideas and feelings. Some suggested reading on this topic: Saying Goodbye to Daddy, When a Pet Dies by Mr. Rogers, and When Dinosaurs Die by Lori and Mark Brown. If you're thinking of conducting more outreach, as Matthew was talking about, reading to the elderly might be an excellent choice. Going out into the community and spending time with our elders and reading can help them to combat loneliness, deal with the aging process in general, and discover their sense of self and purpose. Of course, this is only one group that can benefit from this type of outreach. You simply need to find a group that is interested and in need and reach out and read. So how can you implement bibliotherapy in your library? If you think about it, you'll find that you probably already have. If you discover that you haven't, all you really need to do is discover via environmental scan or focus group what your community is interested in and provide it. The single most important thing that we can do for our communities is listen to them. Take the time and stop to hear their needs. No one else can provide the services that libraries can offer. We are in a unique position to help them enrich and empower their lives. Okay. And the next slide is for Rebecca. She's going to tell you some success stories that she's had in Monrovia.
Thank you, Amy. When I became interested in bibliotherapy, like many of us have to do today because of reduced funding, I sought out a partner, and I discovered that the American Library Association had a program called the Great Stories Club. And part of the Great Stories Club was to team up with another community partner in the community that served at-risk teens. And I identified a partner, and the name is Girls Republic, which was a local residential treatment home. We had about 10 girls, the ages 13 through 17. And the theme of the program was second chances. So I discovered really quickly that the girls were well-read, and part of the reason for that was because they had all spent time in incarceration. They were very eager to participate. They were frank and forthcoming, surprisingly so, and so were their leaders. They had two leaders that came with them every session, and their leaders were open and forthright as well, so it was really a positive experience. I used creative arts, creative writing, a lot of discussion prompts. If you'll take a look, Mark Twain is sitting on a bench there. We did a creative writing exercise where we walked around the library, which happens to be in a park, and the girls took note of the people that were in the library, and then we came back in, and one of the girls wrote about Mark Twain. She wrote a moving and poignant story about Mark Twain waiting for his lover who never arrives. The group was brought to tears by her story. It was a really moving opportunity. And because of that, our library was able to tap into basically an invisible population. Prior to my partnership with Girls Republic, I had no idea that they were even in the community. So we were able to connect with them in a unique way, and now we continue. We've got a relationship with them. We do book talks at their school, and we are planning to do another bibliotherapy program soon. And now I'm going to turn it over back to Amy.
Well, I'm going to talk about the obvious choice, which is story time. Of the more than 22,000 programs a year that we do at SDCL, 4,100 of them are story time related. And of the 420,000 that come, 99,000 of them are attending story time. That's huge for us. Comparatively, it's about half. So it's a core program. I'll give you an example of a huge success that we had. Not too long past in the future, we began a baby story time. And when we began, we had 2 babies and their moms come to the program. We now have over 70 that come on a regular basis, and we've developed this Anyone Can Do It kit. So now that any staff member can be successful with probably the hardest group to tell to, because babies, as you know, they don't read. And it's also a good opportunity to tie in one of our partners, which is First 5 San Diego, which provides a little kit that basically has videos, starter books to new parents of children under the age of 5. So it's a great tie-in program with our partners. Matthew?
I would want to revisit my experience with the Acton Rehabilitation Center. I am the guinea pig for this presentation, where Rebecca and Amy are the experts. They gave me the presentation, basically what you all just saw, and challenged me to explore bibliotherapy. So I identified a partner in the County of Los Angeles Public Health Department, which runs the Acton Rehabilitation Center. The experience has been, not to exaggerate, the best professional experience I have ever had in librarianship. Being able to take the skills that we have conducting book groups and readers advisory and adding more to that, adding a personal touch in the bibliotherapy realm to that experience. The Rehab Center has been receptive to having non-clinician run their book groups. For a while, the substance abuse counselors sat in with the book club and then quickly decided they didn't need to. So I do not have a clinical bibliotherapy training, and I am kind of walking the line between the difference of developmental bibliotherapy and clinical bibliotherapy, and hopefully don't mess too many things up for those if I say something funny. But I'm not avoiding controversy for the Acton Rehabilitation Center. It is the only county-run alcohol treatment center, so we've had a selection of books that has included alcoholism in the characters, as well as there's other substance abuse counseling. So I don't avoid any books that have that as a plot point. And we use that as discussion in the books to discuss how the people ended up in the rehab center and their life choices that got them to that aspect. And I'm not sure where the line is between the developmental bibliotherapy and clinical bibliotherapy is, and I hope I'm not crossing that as a librarian without training in clinical bibliotherapy. However, the men have been extremely receptive to the book club and are, there's only about 10 to 12 that attend the book club weekly. And I'd like to point out that's 10 to 12 men in a book club, which I think is absolutely amazing. The 10 to 12 books that I bring to the book club are passed through the Rehabilitation Center. So of the 120 men, about 80 of them are reading the books. So they're increasing the amount of literacy and reading that's taking place in the Rehabilitation Center that wasn't taking place before. So I think that's a really great example of how, even though the numbers are 10 to 12 attending the book discussion, the active reading has lit a fire of reading in the Rehab Center. Another point I wanted to mention about the Rehab Center has been that the participants in the Rehab Center come from across Southern California. Most of them are County of Los Angeles residents. And part of my discussion has been, when you get out of rehab, use your library. They have more resources on plugging databases and job help and promoting library literacy as well as literacy itself. So it's been a great opportunity to network with and promote library resources. I highly recommend doing bibliotherapy, even if you don't feel like you're trained enough. The Rehab Center, I did not lead the sessions with staff assistants. They gave me an open forum and an empty room, and took anyone that was interested in discussing literature with me. I was nervous starting off the Rehab Center book club, not knowing what the audience reading level is. So I started off with some teen fiction. We approached started with the Hunger Games, wanted to get something popular to attract attendance, and we talked a lot about Hamish, the character that has some alcohol problems, and we used that as a discussion point for the men and how Hamish evolves over the course of the book. After that discussion, I found out that half of the men are really well educated and have a higher reading level, and half of them are looking for GED assistance and just need to be practicing reading. So I started splitting up the lessons into two, where we did a vocab lesson and approached the needs of those that are trying to go from junior high to high school reading levels, and then made something entertaining for those that are college level to discuss more advanced topics. So we're reading To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf this month, and it's somewhat hard to try and approach the early or lower level reading with a modernist fiction, but we're doing our best with vocab words and settings and characterizations and different things like that. It's been a fabulous experience, and I really love it. We had one question about how do we perform outreach with cut budgets and staff, and I do not know, except to say that it's more important than ever to get out into your community and make sure that people know what we're doing and know that our work that we do is important. When I'm out at the library performing outreach, particularly at the Rehab Center and then different community groups in my communities, it's been it places a lot of strain on part-time staff, but I've tried my best to make sure that the library services in the building are being performed as they should and getting out into the community as much as I can. When talking with people, they say libraries are a thing of the 20th, 19th century, and that's not true, and they need to know the important stuff that we do. A lot of people are saying everything's digital now, so I need to be out there reminding them that the library offers valuable services and we're vital to the community. Rebecca and Amy, anything to add to outreach questions?
Yeah, I think that you have to prioritize and find out what your staff's strengths are. In particular, I have a couple examples. I have a staff member who is very interested in Japanese culture, and she has found a way to reach out to the local high school and found out that they have a Japanese club at the high school, and we also have a sister city that is in Japan and associated with Encinitas, California. So she's been going to sister city meetings, and she's also been asked to participate at the school several times in events that have to do with their club. We've also started a club here at the library that is solely about like Japanese interest, reading, activities, food, you name it. And it's been a really great way to do outreach and to get them involved in a different culture and teach them new things. I also have one that likes to go to the local Latino Association, and she's had similar results with that. So I say pick your community, look really closely at it, and then, you know, pick what is going to satisfy your customers the best. And then let a staff member that is interested in those areas run it. It doesn't have to be you.
The other thing I think that we need to consider too is partnerships, especially with the reduced funding that we've all, the budget cuts that we've all suffered. I think that partnerships are very important to help us bridge that gap with the lack of funding. And I think that as we all know that technology is just going to increase and increase, but the most important thing about bibliotherapy is that regardless of the advances in technology, people still need to gather together. And technology has a tendency to isolate individuals, and the library as a physical space and us bringing programs and services to remotely is really important in our communities, and I hope that we don't lose sight of that.
We have another question about the distinction between typical library services that we're already providing and the difference between those and bibliotherapy. I think I have multiple book clubs that meet in the library. One is a foodie book club where we talk about the intersection of literature and food. And that is an excellent way to bring people into the library to discuss literature and have an entertaining time. And our level of discussion is not the same as the book club that meets at the rehab center, where we're choosing books specifically to explore different avenues of the healing process and the emotional development of the men in the book, the rehab center. So I do think there is a distinction, but you can scale your level of bibliotherapy to your situation. You can have someone at your reference desk who is in tears and looking for a book to help them, and you can walk them to the shelves and here's the self-help section and let them be. Or you can take the time to really become emotionally invested in their problem. And I think that's the part where bibliotherapy takes over, and you're providing more than just a library resource. You're providing a library resource and a human resource. Does that answer that question? Amy and Rebecca, anything to add to that?
I think that was well put. The human element is what's missing in a lot of our online activities, everything being virtual. Everyone has those few elderly customers or younger customers even that come in and just want somebody to talk to, and we provide that.
Have we, Stanley and Eileen and Chuck, could you let us know if we missed any discussions? I know there's a question. There's a question that we're avoiding at this point in time, which is the recommendations of formal clinical bibliotherapy training. And Stanley has posted some information in the chat box for you to look at if you're interested in that. And Lois is also, I appreciate that, both of you. We have, because bibliotherapy kind of walks the line of library services as well as mental health services and developmental psychology, you do have the humanities to thank for your ability to do this already without clinical training. And then you can pursue local groups. I'm not sure if there's a listing besides those that are already on the chat box links.
Hi guys, I'm not sure if you caught this one. Did you see this one about the library? I came into the webinar late and missed the Library of Philadelphia Hospital's connection to bibliotherapy.
Yes, and this is Rebecca. I can answer that. That was part of our history, the use of reading therapeutically way back in the 1800s, and that was a book plate from the Library of Philadelphia's hospital.
I really loved that it's stamped with the insane department.
Yes, that was funny.
Any last questions?
I don't see any questions, but if anybody has any information about certification programs, we did find one for poetry. That would be great to contribute that. And here's a comment on a great group to do outreach is the inmates in detention centers.
Yes, and our resources do have, they're quite lengthy. We have included quite a bit of information in terms of bibliotherapy and research that's been done as well, and organizations that support it.
I'm putting a link to that to your handouts, and also the archive will be available at the same link. So, oops.
Wanted to thank you all for attending our webinar. If you have further questions for each of us, our email addresses are on the slide.
Yes, thank you so much.
I would like to thank all of you guys, for the three of you, for an interesting presentation. And again, if you have any more information about certification or other kinds of programs in bibliotherapy, be sure to let us know, and we will add that to the handouts. So thank you all for coming, and we hope to see you at our next webinar.